Today we're going to paint this adorable Christmas barn all decked out for the holidays, so grab your supplies and we'll get started. I've mixed up my colors here and tried out some different browns and the greens for the greenery here, and of course my red. I'm going to take this straight out of this box. This is an extra and it's called Red, imagine that, from the Classics set. So you've probably got a red and things that you have. You may need to add a little bit of brown, or you can add some green sometimes to make the red nice and dark if you want more of a cranberry, or put more red in that just to get it a deeper red. So I'll add that to this. Has a little bit of green in it, and you can paint your barn. You could just make it white and add some shadows for the edges. You could make your barn whatever color you'd like. It could be green. And I'm just painting around all of these elements so we can go back in and fill those in later. So I am going around all of these little spaces here just to get the tip of my brush along these edges. I really like a nice crisp line at this roof, and I'd rather leave more white at the edge than get my red over into that white. And now I'll come in here, and these boards go sideways. You can just kind of, I don't know if you can see how I'm doing that here. I'm just almost depositing a drop of water with pigment in it. I'm not exactly painting it, I'm just depositing it there just so that I don't go outside the lines. So once I take a look at that, I can clear my brush and just, with no water on the end of my brush, kind of fill in some of the white of the paper if I want it more to the edges. You can leave the white lines in there, you can paint them all the way across, just fill the whole thing in, but I'm going in between just to kind of give the idea of that board having a separation between each one. Okay, and now you can either do brown down here, or you can just continue to paint this as painted wood. I'm leaving some white of the paper around there just to start to give it that texture. And this over here is a board as well. Kind of going around what is a garland and leaving enough room. If I need to fill it in with red later, I can, but that way I'm leaving enough room for that green to go around, and I can clean that up later. If I paint the red over it, then I just don't have the space to put the green in there if I wanted to. And it looks like this goes to this edge. Dabble in some of that like so. So now I've got all of the red of my barn done, and I'm going to now clear my brush really well. That red will be embedded in your brush, so I'm leaving this part white, and now I'm going to start working on my green. Up here I have this little wreath. All I'm doing is just touching the green into here and wait for that water to evaporate and see if I need to go over it later. Now I just did my barn, so I need to be careful that I don't get the red in there. And to get these branches little bit more distinct, or the pine here, I will come in with the tip of my brush and make sure that I draw the lines back in there. And you can choose your green. This is kind of a huntery green, and you may want it to be more Christmassy green in that bright colorway. So you can make up your mind on that. And you can always add a little bit of bright green into it, just to give a variety if you would prefer. So we'll just see what that looks like as it dries. And I'm going to come over here, and I think I will brighten this one up and change the color out a little bit for my little tree. So this tree, I'm going to actually start at the end and pull toward the tree, like so, and then I'm going to turn this around and not put my hand in what I just painted. You can wait till it dries if you would like. If you're not confident, you can do that. When you pull it this direction, it's going to end up with more of a square on the end than having more of that pointed line you can get, especially if you've got this water brush available. Now we've got all these little sprigs, really pine needles, and now I'm pulling back toward the branch with the tip of that brush, and you don't even have to make it quite so distinct. You can almost just go over it, and even if it's too dark, you can kind of blot that, and that looks kind of cool too because it's just kind of a faded green. So you can make up your mind how you'd like it to turn out, and you can see what it looks like when you paint right over it, and make up your mind after you watch the video. And then I've got this brown. I don't know why I made the burlap so dark, but I would leave the white of the paper a little bit more in there, so just gonna kind of tap a little bit of that back, and we can go over it later. So I've got this. As long as this is dry up here, you can paint around it. Go get a drink of water, take a bathroom break, let some things dry, all these little pieces, parts here, so that you don't mix your paint. That's kind of one of the number one problems in watercolor, is just being patient and knowing to move around your page so that you can let something set up and or dry in the meantime. Now the barn that I painted, that I'm using as a reference, has, I think that's a little kind of like nighttime. So I'm putting a little bit of yellow in here, that barn has a little light behind it. I'm glowing from inside. I'm going to put a fun little star at the top here. I'm going to go back and darken up some of my burlap bag there. And we'll fill in the rest of this barn door once that dries nearby. So I'll get a little bit of light through here, and I'm going to pop some brighter green into the wreath that's above so it stands out a little bit more before I get into that. And so in the meantime, now I will go and sort of paint in this pathway of following those lines, leaving a little bit of white for texture, and maybe it could be snow. The ground here I have in kind of a silvery color. You may want to use something with a little more, whoop, too close. That was a little too close there. this has too much black in it, so my colorway kind of shows me that, so I should have really kind of known. But like, you could use a blue to make it just a very light, faint blue, to make it look like snow if you want. It's kind of drawn with a little bit of a drift to it, but you could always make it straw or hay, or grass that's kind of dried up for the winter, like that. And I did have this painted in that same color. So now I'm going to go over some of this green and just pop in some more while I'm waiting. And now I'm going to come in here and do this ribbon. And I needed a little more color, so you can kind of see I'm kind of pushing on my brush, this water brush, and just depositing more color in there. I just painted that so it might blend a little bit. And I've got a little bit of kind of a snow kind of look up here, just dabbing a little bit of water with some gray. And I'm going to put a little gray under this eave, like so. And might just paint this part of that window a gray as well. And put a little bit of gray on that grate, so it's got some shadows. And I think we're ready to paint this. Another color brown in here. Got a little messy. These spaces are really, really little. This is the small fine tip brush that I sell online and at my store, so if you are struggling, I would definitely recommend picking them up, especially if you're going to do more of my take and paints, because they're all 5x7, so they're little. Now, I want to go in and kind of fill in some of those white areas. So not every tip area, I don't want to leave that just white. It's okay if it's that way sometimes, but you don't want everything to be that way. And my ribbon here is absorbed into my paper. Going back over that. Now that that's dry, I can add a little more on top there to sort of give a shadow. I'm going to take actually a little bit of this gray and put it around some of where I filled in that light. And that should make it look like it's sort of in the background. You've got some light and some dark as you look through that light there, or look through the window there. So pretty much this could be finished, and you've got a great barn that you can put in a frame or send to someone. And now I'm going to show you if you want to do that outside with kind of a cloudy, sort of snowy day. So I'm going to go around these areas that, you can see how this tree dried, by the way. We had talked about that earlier. And I'm just doing wet on wet. So I've got this kind of gray blue. I'm going to leave some white of the paper. Get into some of these areas around my items for drawing lines. And for this guy, it's a little more blotchy, and I like that because it makes me think of snow. That there's not really clouds, it's not really clear, it's sort of got that blotchy look. I grew up in Ohio around a lot of snow, so this made sense to me. If you're in the South like I am now and grew up here, you may not know what I'm talking about, especially in the last few years. We haven't seen a lot of snow. And I might put a little bit of blue just to kind of lighten that up. But I'm leaving the white of the paper in there a little bit. So in this case, that was too much. I can move it around, or I can take my paper towel and take some off. But now you've got that sky, so it looks like it's maybe evening time, like we said. That's why you have the light showing in the barn, or it's kind of a gray day, and we've got this beautiful barn with fun and adventure inside.